Hello everyone, welcome back to another stream. I'm just literally getting set up here, and chat seems to just be docking itself for no reason here. There we go. I'm having problems with chat, because chat was like just staying docked in one part of the window, which normally isn't a thing. I'm just gonna quickly get everything else set up, and then away we go. So we should hopefully have a YouTube link now that I can use. So let's do this. Right. You will hear random stuff going on in the background. I'm sorry about that. You will also probably hear my daughter crying at some point. My wife's taking care of her, so that should be fine. So yeah, we are all good to go, I think. Right. So, hello everyone. Let's see. Just got to make sure I've got everything set up here. I know I've got a couple of the cast hanging around in the background. I'm just gonna check that out now. Audio says, your daughter's first words better be Gundam related. Oh, hell no. Let's keep the window undocked. The chat window is just not having it today. It's not working with me. So, unfortunately, that's going to be the issue all the way through by the look of it. There we go. I've had to refresh that docked window now. Okay. So, we're going over the full behind the scenes of the ruins and stuff, primarily because I am a little bit all over the place with ideas and stuff. So hopefully people can give feedback on that. And I'm just going to be detailing all the older content, primarily because I've already started going through and improving everything. So this is stuff that people won't have seen before, and I'm going to annotate it as well. So, first off, we got the whole concept for Immersiontale, which if you've only seen the poster from like VR chat or whatever, basically the poster shows both Frisk and the player character back to back. The idea for the concept specifically is for us to go through the standard Undertale story, but the little twist being that the player is also dealing with their own problems, as it were, trying to use the game as a medium to get over past issues and things. So there are parts that I was hoping to intersect the player with the actual game to have them kind of comment on things or experience things and use that as a medium to get over problems that they have. So that's why they share the same position in the poster. Anyway, you'll see a lot of this from the player's perspective in this section of video. This has already been rewrote. This will all be Frisk in the final version with little cut-ins. The idea was that originally, based off the previous animations that I'd done up until this point, the player was going to be the focal point. That's since changed heavily. So instead, the idea was that the player would be the focal point and go all the way through, and we'd get a slow reveal of Frisk actually being the one that was the main character, and we'd slowly get the entire narrative sort of changed towards the very end to reflect the actual proper story from Undertale. Instead, what we now have is Frisk's normal story with the player slowly and slightly intersected. So the idea now is that most of this should be able to be watched without the player. And if you want, you can take the player's sections out of the story and specifically just have it as a normal Undertale animated movie. But if you want to get that added little extra bit and the whole point of the title being immersion, then you can watch the entire thing and it'll make a lot of sense. Hello for those just turning up. So yeah, we've got the beginning here. This is Fallen Down. So this is, like I said, it's the old version. This is the player falling in. All these flowers here, I'm going to be annotating a lot of this in this blue annotation stuff. All these flowers here that we see around the bottom, around here, these have all been redone in the new version. You'll see in the most recent dev video that I release after this, but all the flowers and everything else have been redone, and it looks a whole lot better. This is like really old content that I'm showing off. So yeah, we got fallen down. The player falls in. The idea being that this takes place after the other animations. So for anyone that's watched the other ones in order, the titles, I believe, were How Did We Get Here? That takes place after the previous one, so the player keeps getting thrown into different situations and has to deal with them and adapt to them. And this would have been the proper intro for Undertale, which is having the player slam face first into the flowers, which follows the actual proper storyline. I'm still kept Frisk doing this, which there are a couple of people have said this looks very violent or looks very crazy. I've tried making it kind of cartoony. The idea was that the character, the player themselves, are not treated very nicely. The player doesn't have any specific special powers or anything else like that. I just wanted to throw them around a little bit, so they get beaten up a little bit. Here we go. This is the old version, again, of the intro. We got Flowey in the background. We got some... I'm not going to annotate everything, but around where the pen tool is here, we've got all these little particles of dust that I added in later on that were really cool. Flowey's in the background here. We had some particles for petals flying up before. A lot of this has been now redone to look a little bit better with volumetric fog and stuff. Also, this was a hint at the beginning after the proper intro of what would happen. There we get to see a little bit of, what is it? A little bit of eye glow. Just about there. We get a little bit of eye glow just here. That was literally going to be a first hint at the Undertale storyline, which I'm not going to get into too much because it'll spoil things. But that was going to be a hint at things happening that were pretty close to the storyline, but instead I've got rid of that now. Then we got Flowey coming up. I really like this over-the-shoulder shot. It also made things easy when I was first animating this over like a year ago, primarily because I didn't have to animate the player jumping back too much. Instead, we're going to have this done with Frisk in shot, so it's going to obviously be better done anyway, and more emotive and not in slow-mo. You've got to remember, when I was doing this, I was running on an old computer that was about 6 years old, so it was practically dying. And the reason why I animated at 24 frames per second at that point in time is because I thought, well, it can handle more, but as the scene started getting more complex, it just started being a little bit easier to render at a lower frame rate. And I was like, well, humans don't really see more than 24 frames per second normally anyway. But admittedly now, after doing some of the new stuff, which will be shown off in the next update and looks really good compared to this, admittedly 30 frames per second is the bar for me at the moment. It's really nice to see stuff updated and looking really smooth. But you'll see that, like I said, in the next update. Moody is secretly a logic virus from Nier Automata, says Rents. Rents, I'm hoping you can actually chime in on the ideas for this. So again, this is Flowey explaining, you've fallen into the underground. You need somebody to help show you around. I'll help you. Hey, Blair, nice to see you. I'm just going to quickly detail this because I know we've got some of the cast coming in and some people obviously have come in a little bit, I got nothing yet, says Rents. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to detail this really quickly again for people just coming in now. So, for people just coming in, the idea originally was that the animation would take place after a series of other animations that I've done, and it would deal with the player falling into different locations and having to deal with various different scenarios in their own way and react to them normally. Then, with Undertale, the story was going to be focused solely around a very personal experience of the player overcoming their own past and their own trauma, as it were, while going through Undertale to show more or less like I've seen in the comment sections for Undertale, where a lot of people say, oh, it helped me with depression and other things and really, really helped me, you know, positively as a person. The idea was I was going for that angle, and I still am going with that angle, that the player will change over the course of the game. The thing now is trying to figure out a proper balance between the player and Frisk, because originally it was mostly the player, with Frisk slowly getting introduced and the player kind of getting taken out of the picture completely almost, to then show that no, everything that they did was primarily because they were so immersed in the game and so enjoying it that they just thought that it was them there in the locations, when really it was Frisk the entire time. Now it's a case of, no, it really is Frisk the entire time, with just little inserts of the player believing that they're there, or at least getting more immersed in the story. So I don't know whether I still want to do that or not at the moment in time. I know it sounds like I'm indecisive, but it's mainly just because of some comments made over the past month or so where people are like, this is weird, this is really strange, do you even know what you're doing with this? You know, this seems a bit self-inserty. Don't want it to be like that. But anyway, here we go. So this is all old content, going really low frame rate. This was supposed to be the introduction to the battle system. What we see here is the entire background goes really dark, and the idea for it is that, like in the game where the battle system goes into like black and white, the idea was to have the entire background be very dark to emulate something like that, so that then the soul would stand out on the player's chest as Flowey describes the battle system to them. We got a load of nice little dust particles coming down as well, which I actually really like. Of course, this is the older version, so the flowers don't look as good as they do in the newer one. Here's one bit from the trailer as well, which is... it's been redone, obviously, but I still like how Flowey is very expressive here. So this is Flowey turning tail and doing his little intro where the player's like, oh god, what's going on here? And then we got Toriel coming in. Now, the idea in the game, when Toriel's introduced, is that Flowey gets hit and gets knocked off screen. Instead, what we have here is Toriel sneaks up on him, and he manages to see her at the last minute and ducks out of shot. But a neat thing that we've got here is that watch when Toriel comes on, specifically her eyes. So here we've got a neat little thing that I did, mainly with the Dreamers at the beginning, but I'm starting to doing it with a lot more of the monsters. But Toriel's eyes were red in the game, and everybody came up with different theories as to why, and just simple fact of her eyes were that colour for some people. What I wanted to do was add this thing that, or add something that gave the characters depth in scenes, primarily because while animating faces and while getting better generally at animation, what I've found is that facial stuff is just super important. Sounds really stupid, but before this, I didn't know how to animate at all, so I'm learning this as I go, all off my own observations and things. So the most important thing, obviously, is the face, and for a lot of this, it's like lighting, expressions, things like that. With the Dreamers and some other monsters now, what I started doing was animating glow on the eyes in dark places so that you could still see what their expression was, and also it gives them a little bit of magic there in terms of like explaining why things are the way they are. When you see it again, you'll see as she comes into shot and as she comes just into the light here, her eyes are now not as bright anymore because it's more or less like a glow in the dark thing. Honestly, I really like that, just that little detail, because hey baby in the background.
Maybe you might get a bit of crying for a little bit.
So yeah, what we have here is Toriel coming on and looking kind of imposing at the beginning, but then later on when we see her in certain scenes, she looked pretty calming and everything. We've got the transition into Toriel explaining she's not here to hurt the player. We've got the dust coming down again. You can see the eye glow on her, and just a little bit here. It's not too obvious, but it does help. Baby wants YouTube fame, says John. Hey, John! So yeah, now we get into the proper part of the ruins. This is where when I originally did this, I was looking for ideas on how to make Toriel expressive. I ended up at the same time watching that time I was reincarnated as a slime, just as we were starting to do this bit. I ended up taking a lot of inspiration, I think, from Shuna, if I remember rightly, just because Shuna has good mannerisms that kind of suit Toriel. So you'll see a lot of hands round a waistline, like over the top of each other. You'll see a couple of other mannerisms that suit Shuna and everything as we go through here. This is Toriel taking the player through the ruins and explaining stuff. This is also at the same time I was getting to grips with like facial animation and everything. So there we go. We got the hands around her hips, doing the nice sort of anime style smile. This is cool because I liked animating this bit primarily for the lighting. I spent a lot of time figuring out the logistics for the lighting in the ruins here because I wanted to keep it the same color palette as the brickwork. So what we do have is, and you'll see them in later scenes, it's like small little mushrooms that are at the side and around the borders of the areas that grow only near water or near foliage, as normal mushrooms do. Kind of like the shrooms that you'll see in Waterfall at a later point, except that they're purple. The idea is that they give the area kind of that nice purple color palette that the game has, and it also lights everything up nicely, while also keeping it kind of dark because they're underground. I didn't feel like doing candles, primarily because I don't think my fire effect is that good, and I'm still actually looking up a good fire effect. So here we've got the player being shown through the ruins by Toriel. There's the mushrooms. And there's the water with the bridge there. So what happens is each one of these mushrooms has a point light next to it, which lights up only from that area. So everything should light realistically. So that's why when the characters are coming towards the screen here, you'll see when they go past one of these lights, they fade out again because it's not affecting them as much. Here we go. So here's the dummy part. This is where Toriel explains about having to fight, and she's upset about having to tell the player that they're going to have to fight everything if they want to survive. Or at least, you know, they might have to resort to something like that, but instead she's going to teach them how to fight via the dummy, or at least to look after themselves by talking their way out of situations. The reason why I paused it here is because this was one of the second instance, I think, of using edge lighting, where I went absolutely crazy with edge lighting. I can't find the video of it now, but I swear I saw it on, I think it's Tested's YouTube channel or Corridor Digital, where they were talking to Adam Savage, and Adam was saying, like, everything looks better with edge lighting, and I tried it out, and I have to agree with him. Just lighting everything so you can see the edges of stuff looks a lot better. So you'll see a lot of that, especially if I was to show off Waterfall when I was testing it there at first. It works so well. If you go back and watch the trailers, you'll see a lot of edge lighting on, like, Undyne. So here we go. So this is Toriel explaining that, yeah, you don't always have to fight everybody. You can just talk yourself out of a situation. Go ahead and try it on the dummy. Again, here her eyes aren't really glowing too brightly because there's other light that's affecting her. Here's where we get introduced to it. The player's like, oh, okay, let's see what's going on here. We'll look at Toriel because she can't be serious, right? When really she is. She's just waiting. It's like, okay. Nice weather we're having, right? Or something along those lines. The dummy doesn't respond. And Toriel's like, yay! It's like, okay, well done. Let's go. Now, the thing is, I'm using fake lights to kind of light up everything else here, so you see that a little bit on the environment there. I need to actually fix that in the proper version, or the final. But you can see the light following it just a little bit. I'm trying all these little tricks to make everything look good. Here we've got Frogget and Whimsum are over here. Whimsum are the flying ones, and Frogget is obviously the monster that looks like a frog. A lot of this, I should really detail for those in the cast that are watching this in the background as well. This project also is a way of introducing a lot of the people in my channel to Undertale, primarily for the first time, who have no real interest in it otherwise. That's potentially, well, that is one of the reasons why I put the player in it. because I thought, well, that's another way of getting people interested in it. What we do have here is coloured versions of Frogget and Whimsum. I'm actually, for the final version, gonna have these talking to each other amongst themselves and then have them mention about Toriel with another human as they come past here. This is something that I animated just to kind of populate the area a little bit more. You can see Toriel and the player. And then the Frogget comes over to say hello. He's like, oh, hey. You look cute, don't you? And then Toriel kind of coughs and is like, hey, what are you doing? And the Frogget jumps away. The player's like, oh, I'm sorry about that. But, yeah, in this one, I want them to actually comment more in the final about the fact that there's a human down in the underground. They're not meant to be there, so it's the whole thing of that's going to be cool, having the voice actors actually do little lines and whispers and things that you can hear in the background. Then we've got we skipped a little bit further ahead. This is Toriel giving the player the phone. This is where she explains, if you ever need me, you can just call, right? Of course, again, because it's all done in low frame rate, it's all really slow-mo. I'm glad it's not like this anymore. Here's where she hands over the phone by grabbing it out of her sleeve, which I actually really liked as a creative way of handing it over. It's like, where does she keep this? It's like, yeah, it's up her sleeve. Player says, thank you. What's interesting about this as well is the lighting of it. Oh, no, I'm trying to get this right. The lighting of the phone actually lights up on the player's face and on Toriel when she stood in frame. It's really cool. I like the way I've done that with simple point light. Hoping everybody in chat is enjoying this so far. So here we go. This is a joke that we did on the Discord. Player's like, okay, I guess I'll sit around for Toriel. This was a joke GIF that we had on the Discord of the player just kind of waiting around for like 15 minutes. And then the player's like, oh, I can't wait around forever. Let's go. This is also where my avatar for Discord came from. So here we go. Here's Napstabluke. This is a really old scene for Napstabluke now, because it was, I think, one of the other first scenes I did. Napstabluke and then the spider encounter, where Napstabluke's just sat here like faking that he's asleep because obviously he's a ghost. This is interesting because I had to find a good shader to do like a ghostly, like a ghostly sort of look to him. You can actually see the leaves just slightly through his body here. Yeah, player's like, hey, can I just get past you for a moment? Napstabluke's like, yeah, are they gone yet? I like this shot because it makes it really personal. He's like, hey, I can hear you, right? In the background. And then here's where we have the Napstabluke fight. Or it would be a fight. In-game. But in this one, it's like, it's just a conversation. No, can I just get past there? I don't mean any harm. Can I just get past? And then this is where Napstabluke puts on his hat. So you try and cheer him up a little bit first. I can't remember all the dialogue that I wrote for this. It's in the script. Then Napstabluke's happy and is all like, yeah, okay. I found someone nice in the ruins for once. I'll put on my hat. And then I think the player responds with like, oh, that looks like a nice hat. That's really cool. And then he's like, okay, I'll get out of your way, and then moves then. The idea being that if you're just nice and polite to somebody, then hopefully they'll move out of the way in this sequence. Come on, we're almost at the end here. I might need to actually do the smoothing around his eyes just a little bit. Here we go, here's the spider section. I like the spider section because I tried to make it as detailed as I could. Here's where we get the light from the mushroom that's on the floor. It's pretty dark. We've got some nice details for the webs everywhere. The cool thing we've got is that we've got a bunch of spiders all over the place, not just one, and all the stuff that they sell on the floor. And then This asset here is a sign from, I think it's Link's Awakening on the Switch. A lot of this stuff is like kit bashed, and I think, where is it? This poster, I think, is a fan-made poster, if I remember rightly, which I've credited. And then, of course, we've got stuff like ale and spider donuts. And then on the floor next to them, I think, is a bunch of coins as well. Let's just progress here. There we go. You can see the spiders blinking as well here. It's like, excuse me, can I have a spider donut, please? Puts tokens down there. You can see another spider here. And then the spider comes down with the spider donut. I made them look really cute. I love the way they look. Takes the donut. Thank you very much. And then walks off. And then the spider gives him a wave as a little thank you. I can't wait for this all to be like 30 FPS. It's going to be so good. So then we jump forward to tutorial, wondering whether they're going to be okay because they've been left alone for a while. It's like, right, I better ring them. Here's another instance of the lighting on the characters being important for me. Like the lighting from the phone is just illuminating all of Toriel's face there. And if we go back just a little bit, we can see that, again, because it's kind of a dark lit area, her eyes are slightly glowing. The power of please and thank you, says Lucky. Indeed. Indeed. So it's not too dark an area, but it's dark enough that Toriel's eyes are lighting up. She's like, right, I'll ring. Then she hears the ringing coming from close. She looks over, and the player's here. Then I loved animating this. This is the part where Toriel checks the player and says, are you okay? Are you okay? I shouldn't have left you alone for too long. Absolutely love the lighting from all these little mushrooms. I don't like to harp on my own work a lot and be like, oh, this is great, right? But just looking over all these details and the amount of effort I put into them originally and just knowing that this will look miles better when it's not looking like it's in slow motion at like 24 frames per second with Frisk there instead. That's going to be so good. Again, I was held back a lot when I was doing this by the limitations of the computer that I was using. So it's just going to be neat to eventually get all the timing for this right and get everything looking a lot cleaner. I can't wait to show you this new update after the stream and everything, and after we've talked over ideas and stuff. But here we go. Here's one of the more important shots from the stream. This is, from the stream, from the trailer that I released. This is Toriel showing you her home, where she's really happy. She's like, I just got you back. You're pretty safe. Welcome to my home. You can even see, I put a big mirror in the background there, so you can see her reflections in real time. And over here, we might be able to see it. There's a picture of her and Azrael there. She's like, welcome to my home. She does that, like, again, anime-esque posing. Here we go, there's the shot. There's the shot. So there's Toriel and Azrael there. So she's like, come on in, we've got a room free. Those aren't the exact lines, but I'm more or less just summarizing. So here we go. Here's where the player gets introduced. I'm going to do all this up. Like, this is all from... but no, Asgore. Indeed. Indeed, because of... obviously, there are people in chat that haven't played Undertale yet. I'm not going to spoil it, but for those who know, you know. There's a reason why Asgore's not there. All these environments, or most of them, are not by me, of course. I'll tell you when I've done assets myself. A lot of these are borrowed to get the baseline of everything done, you know, to get the visuals there so people get an idea and so that I can do things quickly and just animate. A lot of this stuff, though, like the door there with the door handle, I am going to go back and actually do that in 3D because I did that for New Home, which is a lot later on in the game and the animation. I did that where I just did the door again and did like the door handle in 3D and stuff. It's going to look a lot better, so I need to keep that consistency. So here we go. Here's Toriel, really happy that the player's here. The player's like, thank you very much. I can't say that enough. She's like, wait a minute. Have I left a pie cooking? Oh, God. She runs off to check on the pie that's burning. The player's like, right, I'll come into the kids' room. A lot of the details in here, now that we've got the better computer, I want to be able to add like little references to other works and things and actually do this in 3D. The only thing that I did in here was, apart from the animating, was obviously the little light in the corner. Let's skip back there. I had to redo this light in the corner because it didn't look good. Because, again, all of this is from like people translating the sprites into 3D from their own work and then putting it in stuff like Source Filmmaker, and it was just easier for me to get those files and just use them. So I'm gonna have to redo some of this, like the shoe rack. I might redo that. The toy box and the bed, I think, are the main issues here. The rest of it looks fine, but that way it's not too much work. And then here we got boom. Oh, no. Skip back here. Here's where we got. You won't believe how crazy it was to animate that on jumping on the bed there. No cabinet of Gunpla. No. It was crazy to animate the bed scene. Originally, I had to actually. This is where the player's kind of reflecting on everything and just being like, "It's so nice of her to just take me in. I better get some sleep. I've not had some good sleep in ages." Then they go to sleep, and then it blacks out for a moment, and then we get Toriel coming in with the butterscotch pie. She puts it there on the floor, where she does in the game. It's going to be great when I can actually have this look how it should do properly. And then this is where we wake up. And then here we go, little details again, right? So I can't properly zoom in at the moment, but here we have the 72 uses for snails, which is an actual book that Toriel reads in the game. I think I've put that by Napster Blook there, because I did the text just for it, and she's got glasses on. Her eyes are glowing a little bit because of the darkness, and there should be a working fire here. I had to redo the table, if I remember rightly. I want to redo her chair so it looks better. Maybe a fireplace too. She's like, come in, my child, sit down. Maybe we can talk about something, or maybe you can read a book. If I remember rightly. Something along those lines. He's like, oh, thanks for everything so far. It's been really nice of you. You don't have to. So we go and sit down at the table. Here's where we get a transition where Toriel watches. It's a neat way of just making it so I don't have to animate the player sitting down, because honestly it was a little bit hard at the time. I could probably do it now, but at the time when I was animating this, especially with low frame rate, it was pretty hard doing stuff like that. We get to see Monster History, which is actually in the game. It's on the shelf in the background. And that one's by Gerson, who is a character that we see later on in the game. So here's where we will get a monologue. This is where I've recorded with Frisk's voice actor currently. This is where we recorded dialogue for this, where Frisk will be reading the book, and this will be like an inner monologue where you'll get to hear them reading through it. I love the fire with the little embers in the background. It's pretty cool, even if the fire itself is literally just a video. And then the player's like, okay, I guess I better get going. I can't stay here all the time. He's like, Toriel. She's like, what is it, my child? It's like, okay. When can I go home? She's like, what do you mean? And then she kind of asks him whether he'd like to know any info about snails. She's just trying to pass it off. She's like, I don't want to go through with this. Let's read more about snails. He's like, no, seriously, I can't stay here forever. I like this and everything, but can we, just tell me how to get out of here? And what I like about this next shot in the back is that you actually get to see Toriel getting up out of a chair a little bit. The book covers a little problem that I had with that, where she clips slightly through the bottom of it. I absolutely hate clipping in animation, so I try and avoid it as much as possible, especially if it's in shot. Although, admittedly, this over here looks pretty dark right now, so it would be neat when I get around to doing this again to light up Frisk there a little bit better than the player. This tutorial's like, I've got to deal with some stuff. You stay here. She walks off. The player's like, well done. Well done. You just had to say something, right? Totally regretting it at this point because everything's been nice up until here. This is the interesting bit where Toriel's gone into the basement. The player chases after her and is like, ooh, can you do me a favor? Can you stop? It catches up with her. She's like, she tells the player about the story of how everyone who falls into the underground dies and how she's sick of meeting new people and having them die on her. This is cool because you get to see her highlight there. She's got a more stern facial expression, and again, because of the edge lighting that I was on about before, she's lit from the other side of her face to show that off, and it looks very dramatic. And then as she walks off here, the player's like, feeling really bad, and then goes, wait, can you not? And then follows her because he's still trying to sort of resolve this without any problems, and he feels really bad about this. She's edge lit from behind. She looks really, really sinister there, even when she's not meant to be. Just I get the mouse out of the way. It's just really cool having a lit like this from that side. She's sad, but she looks sinister at the same time. Here's where she's like, everyone that comes down here dies. And I'm sick of this. So just go back upstairs. And then she walks off again. He's like, I can't go back now. I won't be able to get out of here, right? So he follows her again, and then this is the fight, but this is from the trailer as well. Everybody's seen this in the trailer. Hey, baby. Baby in the background at the moment. Is everything all right, Jen? So yeah, this is the bit where we actually get to the boss fight with Toriel, where you're meant to reason whether... I put this in the trailer because I actually liked the way that I did this. This was the first instance, I think, of doing volumetric lighting, which is basically letting lights glow and making them look like light rays. So you can see it casting around the door here.
Take her out while she calms down.
Hope she's alright. My poor daughter. So, in other versions that I'll go over this, she had a different background that was less detailed. I actually ended up going in and doing the door and the columns and everything else. Basically, getting this door model from, I think it was Source Filmmaker, as a separate model and then placing it in here because the original one wasn't as detailed. And then we've got the fire effect on the hands. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not too sure about the fire effect. Like, I'll just rewind a little bit here. That and zoom in so I can not have to rewind so much. So yeah, this fire effect, what it's doing is it's actually spitting out sprites that are based on flames. And they're spat out at a certain rate and a certain distance as well, randomly in different directions. I think it looks okay, but it's not amazing. It's where the player's like, stop, just don't do this. We can see the red soul in the chest there. She's like, look, you can't look after yourself. Everyone that comes down here dies. Asgore kills them. If you're going to get... If you want to go further, you'll have to prove yourself. The cool bit about this, detail-wise, is that both of her hands have lights attached to them, so they react with the environment and with her how you'd expect. Her eyes obviously have to glow because it's a dark room, because it's the basement, and then behind her is a giant light that's facing towards her back, so she's edge-lit from behind. And of course, it's a case of, this is something that I've been struggling with for a little while, is how do you animate some of these fights? Because some of the characters don't use projectiles, or some of them you'd think the way that they're structured don't use projectiles, or might not. It's a case of trying to figure out what the character's abilities are in full 3D instead of just doing what other people do, where they translate the bullet box from the game into 3D, and it doesn't quite look that good. So for Toriel, I was like, how do I do this? We'll just have her spawn fireballs next to her, and then she throws them. So we got this kind of thing going on here, where she spawns them and then throws them at the player. And the cool thing about that, again, small details, is that as she throws them, if we can just get this pause just right, let's try and use the mouse for this. It's just on one of the frames, you can see it going past the player just enough that the fireball lights them up just a little bit. And then it hits in the background, and the player's like, oh god. But also is obviously has to stay determined, so they're a bit upset that they're having to go through this. That's why they've got kind of this stern face. He's like, don't just stand there, face me. He's like, okay, just gotta protect myself. You got all these fireballs going past, and bam, hit in the face, goes down. The player's like, this isn't right? If I remember rightly, from when I wrote this with the players, it's the old version or the new one? Alright, there we go. This is now taking reference or inspiration from Scientific Railgun, the anime. The idea is the player gets up here, and the player's like, this isn't right, I shouldn't be fighting you. The cool bit about this is, even though the player looks sinister with just the soul glowing around them, they weren't meant to be, which is why they've got a less sinister face here as they pop up. Like, this isn't right. This isn't right, we shouldn't be fighting, right? Walks towards her. She's like, stay away from me, throws fireballs at him, knocks him back against the wall there. This specifically was taken from the fight of Accelerator versus, I think it's Accelerator versus Railgun. But here we go, the player's like, look, this isn't right. You took me into your home. You looked after me. I'm a complete stranger. You showed me kindness. This isn't what you're supposed to be doing, right? And she's just like, it doesn't matter, keeps throwing fireballs. He's like, look, if I remember rightly, I wrote it as something similar to, look, I get it, right? You let your fears get the best of you. I've let that happen to me too. But you can't keep living like this, right? And she keeps throwing fireballs. And he's just like, I just want you to trust me. And then this was one of the first instances where I was trying to do the original idea, which was switching in between the player and Frisk to have the characters realize that something's off, and to have the viewer be like, what's going on, where you get to see it from Toriel's point of view, and it flicks for a moment, we see Frisk. Where's it? Come on. There we go. So that would be Toriel, what Toriel's seeing. Toriel's like, it's pathetic, isn't it? I can't even save one child. So the idea is the characters are still talking as they normally would and still acting as they would, but the player would slowly see what's off in this instance over the course of the entire experience. She's like, okay. She gives in, she goes, I hope I'm right about this. It's something like, she says, I'm sorry, my hopes, my regrets, I'll give them up just for you. She opens up the ruins doors. We immediately get Snowden outside instead of having the cavern beyond that. We get to see the snow particles for Snowden actually falling down in the background. And then the player's like, look, thank you for everything, right? And then she gives him a hug. We get the nice little hug sequence, which I thought was cool. Then this shot is one that I used for Alphys, where Alphys's camera is positioned here in the actual shot. So the idea is that we get to see in the trailer, at least we get to see the shot of the player leaving the ruins from Alphys's camera. And then the doors close. And then Toriel kind of just sadly goes back into the ruins. Now, that was the the original version. Obviously, I've changed certain things since idea-wise. My whole idea at the moment is still to obviously include the player. As I've said, the main point of this is having the player be there to get my own audience who's not interested in Undertale to at least pay attention to it a little bit. But, of course, I don't want it to be a full-on self-insert either, so all these scenes where the character is will now be replaced by Frisk. The one thing that I'm struggling with at the moment is how to introduce the player's story and how to then have it cut in. Having seen all of the ruins, the points where I want to add stuff and kind of slowly introduce the player's storyline, I'll go over that now, because if we go through here, normally around about here, there's an instance where you find a bowl of candy. And the idea is that you're allowed to take one. It even says there's a letter on it that says take one. But the player doesn't take one because they've not been given verbal permission, which shows them actually being nice and kind, despite what they might say later on about their own backstory or whatever. The idea is that they slowly open up and figure out who they are over the course of the story, but I can't just self-insert. I really can't, because it won't be good for anybody, whether it be fans of Undertale or me. It'll just look terrible. So the idea is now to do these little insert scenes to kind of take away from that and make it so that you could watch it as purely an Undertale animation or an entire thing that's an AU with the player involved. I don't know about the intro, the full intro before this at this point with Fallen Down, because I planned something out last night and it didn't seem too good just to open to that, so I might do it via text instead, just to kind of loosely hint to stuff. In Toriel's place where there's the sleeping bit here with Frisk, I was thinking of adding a nightmare sequence that alludes to the player's point, and then we have the player come in, because the idea is that at certain points the player has to be there just to get through the whole idea of immersion, which for anyone who doesn't know is that whole thing of when you're playing a video game, if you're immersed in the storyline, if you're enjoying the characters, if you're enjoying the environments, the music, your brain does a really weird thing where essentially it says, right, you're more involved in the story, you're more involved in the game, and thus you sometimes feel like you're actually there, or your imagination makes up for it. That's where the idea comes from, that's where the name comes from as well, is just allowing the player character to feel like they're there as well. So again, it's a case of trying to slowly introduce that throughout the storyline and not have it be too intrusive. I don't know whether anybody in chats got any ideas or any recommendations for me as of this point in time as to where they think I should take this, whether the cast is still in here listening, whether they want to chime in. I'm all open to, obviously, ideas and tweaking things at the moment. My main tweak so far has come with just literally replacing the player character with Frisk, because that's how it should be. I don't want this to be a massive self-insert, but I also don't want it to completely deviate from my original idea if I can help it, because otherwise it just goes back to being an Undertale animation, just completely rewriting everything and writing the player out of it. I'll only do that if there's no other way of resolving this kind of stuff, but it's going to be so good when I put out this next update to show off all the animations and things. I still got nothing. This is pretty solid, says Rent. So the idea now then is going, just quickly scrubbing through it and saying, well, like, look, all this that we've got with the player here, the player being the character with the black hoodie on and everything, just imagine the scenes being with Frisk instead, right? So we just get slow introduction to them. Do you think that'd be okay and not as intrusive as literally doing what looks like a self-insert at the moment, but doesn't, or it's not intended to be? What I want mostly is more quips and commentary from Moody about what's going on around him. Says Renz. Like, admittedly, this is one where you'd expect certain things, but you might not get them depending, because the idea is I'm closely following the original streams that we did that inspired the player character. But yeah, again, the idea was that I would slowly do this reveal. Instead of it being the player character that was going to be revealed, it would be Frisk that's revealed over the course of the storyline, to kind of do the whole thing of surprise. It was Undertale the entire time, and nothing that you thought was real was real. What was actually happening. But instead, now it's a case of, no, the surprise will be that, yeah, the player is experiencing these things and they think it's real, when really it's just Frisk's journey. We'll occasionally get the odd chime in where we get to hear the player comment on stuff, but it's primarily going to be now Frisk and them chiming in on stuff and enjoying themselves. I think that'll work better, and I think it'll go down better with Undertale fans, rather than it just looking like a crappy self-insert, you know? But yeah, I can't wait to do all of this stuff again. I'm even thinking of redoing some of the wall textures here from the ruins, because specifically Dorked on YouTube has done a background for the AU Inverted Fate, and the background for the ruins actually would really help on making these bricks look a lot better. So what I might do is ask them, can I use the background for Inverted Fate to make the brickwork look a little bit better? That way it'll look a little bit more high-res. John says, couldn't you have a scene where the player looks into a mirror and sees Frisk's reflection instead of themselves? That's one thing that I've been doing over the course of the original idea. I was saying a lot when I did the True Lab that what was going to happen was everything would rest on the twist being in the True Lab. The True Lab section has a lot of Frisk and the player both walking around in the same locations, with the idea being that you would slowly get a hint that there was something going on. And then there is a couple of points where there are mirrors where you get to see both of them side by side. The idea being that, you know, that would be a cool slow reveal, and eventually the player would figure out and snap out of it and be like, "Whoa, crap, I've been playing a game this entire time. I'm just that immersed. I felt like I was there, you know, instead of Frisk." But yeah, the whole twist was originally going to rest on the True Lab. Instead, now this will have to be reversed, and it'll have to be sort of evenly distributed, so that I can get this sort of done. Because the main parts for this, where I wanted to introduce major parts to the player's story, were at least Toriel's place, showing that the player is not a bad person, even though they might feel like they are. Clearly they're not bad because of the way that they act and the politeness and stuff. In Waterfall, I've joked about this on Discord, but I've managed to put a specific scene from Waterfall in every single trailer, and that's the one where the player sits down in front of the statue, which looks oddly like Asriel. And for anyone that saw the original playthrough that we did of Undertale ages ago, you'll know that that was a really important part in the playthrough, where, for some strange reason, that just really vibed with us, and it was a really emotional moment. So that was a point where I was going to have the player sit down at the statue and more or less just explain the part of the story. You could totally take it out if you wanted from the entire animation, but the idea was that they were going to explain part of how they felt, which was along the lines of, you know, before I fell down into the ruins and started making my way through here and meeting everybody, honestly, I felt like I was about to give up, and like I'd been there so many times before, but this would be the time where I would just completely give up on everything. And now, for some strange reason, just being here, I don't feel angry, I don't feel sad, I'm calm for once in so many years, and it's really nice and peaceful to just get a moment to myself, you know. And then to kind of explain this a little bit more in depth with, like how the character is. And then the idea is from Waterfall onwards, the character would get little moments of relating to certain characters and what they feel. Like, for instance, Alphys's low self-esteem, or the fact that she hates herself for some of the other stuff that, she can't obviously tell people until the end of the animation or the end of the game if you've played it. But the idea is there'd be small sections of slowly uncovering that, the player's not really happy with how they've acted or how they've been in past parts of their life. And then eventually, at the end of the story, it would wrap up with both the player and Frisk getting the pacifist ending. And the takeaway from the entire thing was basically aimed at almost being like the moral, which was no matter what you think of yourself, no matter what you go through, there's always something good in somebody, and it's just a case of having something there to help remind you that even though there's a lot of crap that people can go through, you can still be a good person at the end of the day. That's where I thought it would be really cool to kind of put forward that message. There was even another one that I was thinking of, which was something like, no matter how old you are, there's no excuse for justifying stuff that's wrong by saying, oh, it's right. We all can do the right thing. It's just a case of remembering who we are and what you should be doing. That was the kind of vibe I was going for at the end. And then it would end with the pacifist ending of Frisk and the monsters going off together. So that's going to be neat to get round to that eventually. I think the only point where the player's going to have any frustrating or awkward moments where they feel like they're going to be angry is versus Asgore in the neutral run, or at the end of the neutral run. That's obviously the way that Asgore is. That kind of has to happen just for the neutral run. So yeah, for people that obviously know Undertale in here, you'll know what I mean by that. I already kind of blocked out that ages ago as to what that fight would be, but of course I need to actually practice fight scenes, which was another thing that I was going over in a couple of other streams where I was saying I was hinting at potentially practicing fight scenes by doing a twist on the genocide run as a smaller animation, which would literally take place just over the course of the entire length of the Megalovania song from the soundtrack. And the twist for that would not be what people expect from the genocide run, which is basically the genocide run is something I would never do myself, and it's where you kill all the monsters. And the idea that I had for that came literally from the multiplayer version of Undertale, where I'm still mulling around with this in my head, but I thought it would be interesting to have it where the characters all get to the end of the genocide run in the Judgment Hall with Sans, and they're just about to beat him, and then a reset occurs where basically they go back to the last save point, which is just before the boss fight starts. And the idea being that throughout all of the genocide run on multiplayer, one of the players has been constantly pressing mercy and has just been getting really, really angry with everybody else because they've just been constantly doing genocide and just clicking attack and attack and attack and not really caring about the characters and how they might feel or the stories or anything, and just treating it as just like ones and zeros. And the idea was that the player would actually help Sans in the fight by having the power of reset there. So basically every time something goes wrong, they just reset again to the exact same load point. The idea being that you could then do some interesting fights where sometimes you think it's over when it's not. Sometimes you reset halfway through somebody's attack swing or whatever. The idea being that the players that thought that they would finally complete a genocide run and beat Sans and be like, oh, look, we beat him. That's just not happening and never will, because there's one thing that's always stopping them, and that's a player that will never get bored of just resetting. Because the catch in the actual game is that Sans will eventually be overpowered because you can go through his fight so many times and then you'll eventually know all of his attack patterns. Whereas a player that has the power of reset, you literally can't do anything about that because they're always just going to reset even if they lose. So that was a concept I'm still mulling around with because I thought that would be pretty cool and I could get a good setup for that in terms of like an emotional tone going into it. So that might be something I practice on alongside everything else at the moment. But yeah, if you guys think that the idea that I'm going with at the moment of just having small cuts in of the player is okay, and that, a small text scroll at the beginning might be alright, just to kind of explain that something's slightly different, then I don't mind that, because, like, the only thing I came up with last night for that was, where is it? Promo? No, it's the PC room. This is the only thing I came up with last night when I was thinking of it, was another sort of intro. And the intro was literally going to be the player loading up the game at the start. Let's just load up the text that I had for this so I can kind of read it out to you. Because I honestly don't think I'll go through with this now, but it's there on the cutting room floor, so I might as well go over it. So the idea was, before Undertale as a game actually starts, and you watch the beginning with Frisk falling down, we were going to have the player be seen here. And the camera was going to zoom in. We're going to have them like this at the beginning. And the idea was we were going to get like some stuff, like a close-up shot of them as well at some point, but it was going to be like, this started as something enjoyable, but in that one moment, everything changed, and it became a way to escape from the real world, escape from all of my problems, right? And then it has the player doing that. And then it was going to be like, change it to sort of this angle, right? After they do the pound, because the idea was that they do the fist pound on the desk and the mouse would go flying everywhere and stuff. And then the next bit was going to say, I'd like to say I'm a nice person, but that's not entirely true. The thing is, right now, I'm not even sure of who I am anymore, but something inside me is screaming out, so let's escape again to another world. That was one of the potential intros I was going to have. The other one was something along the lines of explaining immersion completely. And I'm trying to remember what the line for it was, because I've got the other dialogue in here somewhere. Where is it? Is that it? Okay. So the other line that I could have put in here as the intro was, video games are fascinating things. They can make people happy, they can make people sad, they can make them laugh, and they can make people cry. We can form new friendships and meet new rivals or enemies. They can even break the barrier between reality and fantasy sometimes, allowing players to live out their fantasies. You can even save a world or two. This could be anyone's story. Anyone could go on this adventure, as I'm sure many people have before me, and many will after. They say it's just a game, but to me, in these moments, it's as real as it could ever be. That's the power of immersion. These are just like really rough ideas at the moment for trying to get that slight intro to the player's story before we get into the full thing. I'm not too sure right now, which is why I'm like, should I just do it as a text crawl and then we just have it, as slowly introducing it, or what? Because I think text crawl would probably be a little bit less taking the viewer out of the experience, than seeing this when they first load it up and being like, what the hell? See what you guys think in the comments section in a moment. Because I honestly don't know whether I'm overdoing it or underselling it. So any sort of ideas is fine. John says text scroll would be better. Yeah, I'm leaning heavily towards text scroll, at least today, after sort of animating this thing with the player next to the computer. I'm just like, I'm not so sure on this. I think it'd be pretty jarring clicking something that says Undertale AU and then having this immediately. You know, so just like a small text scroll would be good. Because the thing is, it's not as if I don't know what I want to do with the player's story. It's just where I should insert these things, how much, and then whether I'm overdoing it or not. That's the key takeaway at the moment. Nice setups, as Damon. So yeah, if everybody's fine with that, and it sounds alright, then I'll just do the text crawl. Because then, the reason... love the wallpaper, I just found that randomly online. The reason why I think the text crawl will be better, and the reason why... trying to explain this, and my poor daughter's crying her eyes out. I'm going to have to go and check upon her in a sec. She had this problem the other day. It's a bit hard to do the stuff while I'm busy hearing her in the background, so I'm going to deal with her in a moment and go see if she's okay. It had me like this at the moment. The whole point of, you know, detailing the whole thing about immersion and having the player there in the first place is to sell that other side of the story, obviously, to give you the whole thing of, okay, this is a different take, this is what the player would experience or what the player feels from their point of view. So do a text scroll over a screenshot of this scene, but with it black and white overlaid in the contrast. I don't know, because like when you go over the intro, hang on, there's Mew Mew. Let's see, Undertale backup. Here's all the files that you guys haven't seen. I have so many of them in here. Blender files. So there's Sans and everything that I set up the other day, and some of the other stuff which you'll get to see eventually as well, which is really cool. All the sound test stuff. But if we do, where is it? Intro? It's not got it here. Damn. Have I got... let's just check on my other screen. See if I can show you this. Should be able to have it. It's in the output file somewhere. Because I have the full intro done without anything interrupting it. Ah, there we go. I throw that into Blender so you can see that. Video editing. Cancel that for a moment. There we go. Video full intro. So you got to think of the first thing that you normally see with Undertale is this when you start it up. It's just this is the high res version of it. This might be the older version as well that I've kind of mixed with it. Yeah. Okay, so what we do is you see this at the beginning of Undertale, right? Where it tells you all the backstory about it. So I'm actually thinking that it might be too jarring having something that's not a text crawl before this. Or just a little bit of text. Because it's just the entire high-res version with, I think, Temmie's artwork. And then you've got, obviously, the proper intro that we've put in now that I'm going to have to edit. This is all old now, so actually after... was it? After that, I have to edit the new version in of Frisk falling down. Because this is the old version with the player in it. Yeah, the idea is that would be the first thing you see in the entire thing. And normally when you boot up the game, you get this. So I'm thinking just like the determination text font over the start here. So it'd look something like, oh, let's just do a quick mock-up of this, right? We do... Do text here for a moment. This is going to be really rough. I've got this bullet pointed as well, so it's going to look terrible. So if we do... If I just do this, then try and cut this so it's just about the right speed. So let's try that. So if we do... God damn it. It's because I'm using Jen's Wacom. I'm using Jen's Wacom Cintiq 13, I think it is. So it's a little bit awkward. Let's just try and read this. I need to put that up to about 8 seconds, I think. This is just a mock-up, so... And then we do, like, a fade on that. I'll have to rewrite parts of this, because the last part I'm not too sure about, because I know I've mentioned it in the escaping worlds and going to another one there, but I might need to rewrite it just a little bit. So that's roughly about the right timing, right? Maybe a little bit longer just to give somebody enough time to read that and know that something's different. So we got this kind of setup here. And then, bam, immediately. Oh, I forgot to put the music on as well. So yeah, immediately into the title sequence there, I think would be a lot better. It's giving me Fallout vibes, says Damon. I think that'd be a lot better as just a way to ease people in while also telling them that something's different. Descriptions for this, that bit's fine. I think I need to write that one slightly better. The point that I make there of, that bit, the first line there up until the second comma, is just to give the impression that, this could go either way. It could be a genocide run, it could be a pacifist run. It's totally, up to the player. And of course, it's the whole thing of, then you can kind of keep an eye on them and see whether what they're doing is pacifist or genocide, or it's hinting at the fact that there's some split there, so it could go either way, just like the beginning of the actual game where you can do whatever you want. And then that wraps into the intro there. And the intro, I don't think I've shown you guys this, so we might as well watch it just quickly. Full intro here with the audio. I don't know how loud the audio is for you guys, but I hope it's okay. This is it actually played on a music box on YouTube. So good. If I remember rightly, I've included sound effects as well from the game, so... The amount of time I spent photoshopping Temmie's stuff from a book as well to make sure I had no scenes in was crazy. I should have actually done that as like a video. These are all sound effects from the game. I love how that last little bit where the logo comes on is just at the very end of Falling Down playing as well. It just timed it just right. Oh, there's a lot of nice little things I want to do, and it's gonna be good when it's all done and dusted. But obviously, I need to redo this and have the intro be the one that looks a lot better and actually features Frisk. But yeah, the amount of work I put into just the Photoshop bits here alone, primarily because Temmie did all these for the art book for Undertale. They're all like really high res, you can find them online, but a lot of them have like a seam down the center because it's on 2 pages. I ended up literally spending forever in Photoshop just going in with like the eraser tool and like trying to manipulate things just so that I could have them look high res in the background and still keep in line with everything else. Just manipulating this to look how it should without having those seams was pretty nuts. Not gonna lie, you can just about see the seam there, but if you're not looking for it, you don't know what you're looking for, then it's fine. But yeah, that's an idea of the intro, and thank you guys for helping at least give me a better idea of what I should do with the player's story, which is literally just do a text scroll. Just do a text crawl, dude. It's so much better than showing stuff. Sometimes it's better not showing things and then slowly explaining them, especially with this, than going in and spending like an entire evening animating an entire character being frustrated at a computer. Yeah, I can't wait to get the ruins done. I'll literally come off this now and do the next update, which you'll see all the new stuff in, which is absolutely amazing. Thanks very much to the voice actors for putting up with me so far, because my god, their stuff is brilliant in the sample stuff that you're going to see. So I'll get that video up tonight, and then I'll do like another stream later on or something. But yeah, been incredibly busy. So I hope you've enjoyed the behind the scenes to the ruins, the old version of the ruins now. It's going to be heavily updated. Sorry for the low frame rates. As I said before, the frame rates were tied to literally the fact that the computer was on its last legs and just could really only put up with that kind of stuff. And I shall see you in the comment section and on the next stream. And hopefully, when I see you next time, you'll have seen all the new stuff and it'll be great. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!